Hope, and it will be recorded. So our lovely guest today is the amazing Jeff Allen. Vic, did you figure out a way to do both of us at the same time? Pen, yep. And then, all right.
Hey, there we are.
Okay. Love it. Okay. So we're talking about hope. We're talking about everything. But Jeff, start off. Tell us about yourself. How'd you get into youth development, and particularly like your relationship to mentoring?
Yeah. Well, it started out, I've been an educator for 32 years. Actually, prior to that, I think what the tipping point for me career path-wise, I was going into journalism and marketing. And then I started working in college when I was going to school at WSU at a summer camp in Colorado. And worked at that camp every summer for 4 years, and it kind of lit a spark in me that changed the path. And I got my teaching certificate and a math degree and started teaching math at alternative schools. Actually, the other kicker was when I was substitute teaching, I got a call for Auburn West High School, which is the alternative school in Auburn, as a substitute. And I said, sure, I'll take it. And then they called me back the next day and said, do you want to do it again? And I said, sure. And they realized they had, a fish on the hook, and then they kept calling me. And so I was kind of got my taste of working in alternative programs through substituting, and then worked in an alternative program in Forks and taught here in Central Kitsap. And then that led to my work here at the ESD, and about 12 years ago, was asked to take over our institutional ed programs. So I'm the principal of the Kitsap and the Clallam County Juvenile Detention Centers. Oh, hey, Robin's here. Hey, Robin, I didn't even see you there. And then, also administer our WIOA youth programs at WorkSource in Kitsap, Clallam, and Jefferson counties. And we also have a youth build program, and just focusing on the most powerful and impactful thing that we can offer a young person, which is access to a relationship with a caring, compassionate, competent, consistent adult. And so
I love that.
Then in the last couple of years, I've been digging into the science of hope, and part of my work these days is also spreading the word about that.
I love it. I love it. So I have to do this just because I was on a call earlier today about social emotional learning, critical race theory, and cultural responsiveness, right? And there were so many acronyms. I want to break down all the acronyms we just said. So for those that don't know, I'm James Miles, see him, Executive Director of Mentor Washington. We do training, capacity building, funding, and advocacy for 150 plus mentoring organizations across Washington State. We're a public-private partnership with Department of Children, Youth, and Families, DCYF. And of course, Jeff is from ESD 114 and works with WIOA. Break down all those. What's the educational service district? Yeah.
Well, so in the state of Washington, there are 295 public school districts. That doesn't, and I believe right now we're looking at about 14 charter schools, and then there are 7 tribal compact schools. And so all of those schools throughout the state are broken up into 9 regions, educational service districts. And so the ESDs are kind of an intermediary between the State Office of Public Instruction and those 295 plus districts. And then we provide a myriad of services ranging from fiscal and budgetary, right? Their school district budgets need to go through the ESDs to be approved by the state, ranging to running institutional ed programs, running special education co-ops. We provide through grant funding a student assistance professional, drug and alcohol interventionist in just about every middle school and high school in our region. Our region serves Kitsap, Clallam, and Jefferson counties, as well as North Mason School District. So the short answer for what an ESD does is we help school districts do what they need to do better, faster, and cheaper than they can do it themselves, particularly providing equity of access to resources. We have, for example, the Central Kitsap School District in Silverdale, which is about around 11,000 students, but we also have the Queets School District out on the coast with about 32 students. Both of those districts have the same responsibilities in terms of fiscal processing and data processing and special education and so forth. So what we do is try to consolidate many of those services together that then provide access to Queets the same level of services that a district like Central Kitsap have access to.
Awesome. And WIO is Workforce Innovation Opportunity
Act.
Act, right?
WIOA. Okay, Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, federal law. It's our federal workforce law, workforce development law. And it ranges from everything from programs for adults to dislocated workers to veterans to youth programs. And specifically, I supervise our WIOA youth program called Pathways to Success. By the way, yeah, wherever you are at the state, your WorkSource offices has a youth program. So check out what those programs are in your WorkSource offices locally. The focus of the WIOA youth program is supporting what the federal government calls opportunity youth, right? These are young people between the ages of 16 and 24 that are necessarily out of school, have dropped out, are low income, and may have a number of other barriers to their life path that enable them to engage in a career path that helps them sustain themselves. So our focus is to recruit and enroll opportunity youth into the program, provide them with case management and a 14-point program of touch points to help them identify a pathway for themselves career-wise. It's very much like hope, by the way, that we'll talk in a minute. Identify what that goal is, identify a pathway to get there, and help navigate and negotiate the barriers that might come along the way. So we can do everything from helping a student do a job search and write a resume and prepare them for an interview, to leveraging the dollars to buy them a phone if they don't have a phone because they need to be able to speak to an employer when they're sick. All the way to, we put them into a paid work experience. So we can use the federal dollars and partner with employers in the region to put those youth into a paid work experience. For many of these students or young people, this is their first paycheck job that they've ever had. And so we leverage the dollars to release that burden from the partner employer that will put them into 150 to 200 hour paid work experience that we use the federal dollars to pay the wage. And then the employers become mentors and counselors along the way, and often end up hiring those students. So
I love it. I love it. We have some people on this webinar or Zoom that would be very interested in that. So I'm glad you broke that down for us. Thank you.
Yeah. Go to connect with
Yes.
your local work source.
Yes. Perfect.
If you've got students that are eligible, you find out the eligibility. They are always, one of the things that's a challenge with that program is recruitment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so any recruitment partners the WorkSource offices can find are of great help to them. So if you've got youth on your caseloads that are eligible for WorkSource, take them over there, get them hooked up.
Right. Excellent. So I have only one more question, and this could lead right into your presentation, and that's about hope. Yeah. Why does hope matter?
Oh, well, you know what? I even have a PowerPoint prepared to answer your question.
I love it.
What coincidence. So let's move over to this. Everybody see my screen okay? All right. So yeah, what we're going to talk to you about is a scientific, a well-documented and researched area of study called hope sciences. And this has been a bit of a personal as well as a professional journey for me for about the last 7 or 8 years. It first started out with The Psychology of Hope by Rick Snyder. Rick Snyder was one of the pioneers around positive psychology and positive character development. And unfortunately, Rick passed away about 12, 15 years ago. And since then, that work has been taken up by Chan Hellman at the University of Oklahoma. And I've had the privilege of working with Chan quite a bit. Matter of fact, I have a meeting with a cohort of classrooms later on this afternoon with Chan, that he's been doing a lot of work on how to operationalize and help people understand the principles of hope and how you can build hope in other people. So before we get too deep into this, I want to ask you this question, and feel free to type it into the chat. When you hear the word hope, what does that mean to you? Think about the word hope. Wishing. There can be something better. It's a positive future, the beginning, positive change, brightness, light at the end of the tunnel, improving our current circumstances. Yeah, now, before I get into the definition a little bit more, I want you to contrast that then. How is the word wish? Because James, you were the one that first threw that up there. How is the word wish different from the word hope? It's a tougher one. Use it in a sentence.
Well, I can think of just wish upon a star.
Right?
You can't really hope upon a star, but you can wish upon one.
Okay. So how about if I said, I hope it is sunny today versus I wish it was sunny today.
Asset versus deficit based.
Maybe. Wish has more despair in it, more optimistic. Wish has less practicality. Interesting that, Victor, that you said that. So hope, as many of you have pointed out in here, is about a positive future. It's about the steps to get there, and it's having control over that. Whereas a wish is an ethereal thing that I wish it were a sunny day, but I don't have any control over that. You know, and so recognize that the definition of hope is the belief that tomorrow will be better than today, and that you have the power to make it so. It's different from a wish in that you have some level of agency towards making that happen. So as I said, this is kind of tied around to and stems from Rick Snyder and many others' work in positive psychology. Positive psychology is that field of study where, rather than thinking of the traditional realm of psychology, where we're looking at it from a deficit base or a problem base, where the questions are, what's wrong with you, to a positive, constructive base of what are your strengths? What's positive about you, right? And through that work, they've identified these 24 character strengths of positive psychology that are within the themes of courage and humanity, transcendence, temperance, justice. And so you see these behaviors or characteristics of gratitude and open-mindedness and perseverance and leadership and forgiveness. But the one thing that they have realized through their research is that the characteristic of hope becomes a very powerful predictor of someone's ability to flourish or overcome obstacles or their resilience. And so they started realizing, wait a minute, as we look at all of these people and their outcomes, we realize that hope is really significant. So what is it? It's actually quite simple. Hope is the ability of having a positive vision for the future. In other words, being able to set a goal. It is having the tools and the skills to achieve those goals, right? Developing a pathway, or what we call Waypower, and having the motivation to realize that vision, your willpower. In other words, in short, hope is being able to set a goal, being able to make a plan towards achieving it, and believing that you're worth the effort. See, when people that are highly hopeful people know that there is a better future for them, they believe it's there, they can visualize that better future. And they're continually working on developing those skills of being able to achieve that goal. But they also recognize that there are many different pathways towards being able to achieve that goal. And they also know that nothing goes according to plan. So no plan is free of obstacles. So they also have the skill set of being able to navigate around the barriers that come up. And it kind of looks like this. This is kind of a growth chart, but you can also think of this as circular as well. Think about when you're having a conversation with your mentee or your youth about their future, and you help them identify a goal, which helps them build agency in themselves and clarifying what it is that they want. And then they identify what's a viable pathway towards achieving that goal, and it helps them recognize that some of those pathways may have barriers. And then they create a future memory of success that reinforces their agency and their ability to achieve those goals. And then they build hope. And guess what? Then it goes around again. Hope is not linear. Hope is a circular thing that happens every day. But unfortunately, not everybody has high levels of hope. And the impacts of that are really clear. You guys are very well aware, I am sure, of the Fellini and Adna study back in 2000, gosh, when was that? 2006, 2001? Yeah, 2001, of about 17,000 patients with Kaiser Permanente in San Diego. And what they did is they identified this spectrum of 10 different adverse childhood experiences, ranging from physical, mental, and emotional abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, household dysfunction, a parent that's incarcerated, mental illness in the family, divorce, substance abuse in the family. And they identified or asked these patients, how many of these adverse childhood experiences have you experienced as a child? Keep in mind, we all know this is not a comprehensive list of adverse childhood experiences that a child could endure. However, these are the 10 that they identified in the study. Here's what they found. It's incredibly common. They found that 26% of the population has had at least one adverse childhood experience. 9.5% of the population have had at least 3. And 12.5% have had over 4 ACEs in their life. That's 12.5%. That's in the United States, that's something approaching 40 million people, right? The average ACE score is a 1.6. However, what they found, while the average national score is 1.6, students that have been exposed to domestic violence have had 4.4 average adverse childhood experiences in their life. Juvenile offenders have experienced at least 4.29 adverse experiences. And we're probably well aware of this. children that have been engaged in the foster system, overwhelming number of adverse childhood experiences. And keep in mind that list is just those 10. And every one of you could probably list off another 10 adverse experiences that the youth that you work with have experienced. What does this mean? This means that youth that have had 4 or more adverse childhood experiences have a 1,200% greater likelihood of having suicidal ideations, 700% greater likelihood of becoming a substance abuser, 600 more times likely to have had sex before the age of 15, leading to a myriad of other challenges. And you can go on and on and on. Robin, I'll come back to your question because I'll dig into that in a minute. So when we think about hope and that set of being able to set a goal and making a pathway towards it and having the agency to achieve it, what happens to someone that's had a lot of adverse experiences? Well, their goals tend to be more avoidant instead of future oriented. Their goals tend to be, my goal is to not allow this to happen to me again, as opposed to my goal is to achieve something in the future. They tend to be shorter term goals, right? For someone that is worried about where they're going to sleep that night, they're not thinking about goals 5 years down the road. They have difficulty developing those pathways towards achieving the goals. They have difficulty conceptualizing a pathway or multiple pathways to solve a goal. And they really have difficulty problem solving. And when a barrier or a challenge comes into the mix, they have difficulty being able to address that barrier. They all have lower self-image, a vision of themselves, their self-worth, that leads them to not be able to visualize that positive future. And by the way, being motivated takes a lot of mental energy. And their mental energy is taken up by many other things. And one of the important things that we've been finding out, recognizing that the human brain is the largest consumer of glucose in the body, that proper nutrition is really important for people that have high levels of hope or to maintain a high level of hope. So when you couple adverse childhood experiences, those poor outcomes later in life, and the difficulties for someone to have hope, we see a different trajectory. Someone that has low levels of hope, they set a goal, but then that goal gets blocked. There's a barrier that comes in the way, and they get angry about it because they can't see a way around it. And so they're unable to adjust their goal or the pathway around that, and they become despondent, leading to the point where they simply can't achieve what they feel like they need to in their life, and they become apathetic towards life itself. So what does it look like? It's very, very simple. It is developing a valued goal, an idea, a vision of a positive future. It's developing the pathways, the Waypower, the set of steps and skills towards achieving that goal, and then building the agency, both internally and externally, the community around you, the resources that you have around you to stay motivated and stay focused on achieving that goal. Now, one other thing I want to get into before we talk about what it looks like and how we go about it is that we know we can measure this. As a matter of fact, Rick Snyder developed both an adult and a children's scale. It's a very simple, quick, it can be done in a matter of 2 minutes, a simple scale that allows you to measure one's level of hope. So we took advantage of this. If you're not familiar with the Healthy Youth Survey, this is a survey that's conducted in Washington State of students all over the state from 6th grade to 12th grade, asking them a number of questions around safety and violence behaviors, protective factors, health-related factors, their use of alcohol, tobacco, and drugs. And then they collect, and we use that data in terms of targeting where we put resources in schools and other services. And in 2018, we made a change to the Healthy Youth Study or survey and added 4 questions related to hope. So these are the 4 questions that we ask students within the Healthy Youth Study now. The first one is, I can think of many ways to get the things in life that are most important to me. None of the time to all of the time. That's a pathways idea. I'm doing just as well as other kids my age. That's an agency thought. When I have a problem, I can come up with lots of ways to solve it. Pathways thinking. I think there are things I've done in the past that help me in the future. Agency. So we asked these 4 questions, and this is the data that we got. This is actually the most recent one. This came out, we've only done this for 2 years, so 2018 and 2021. So in Washington State, these are just specifically 10th graders, 44% of the 10th graders reported that they were highly hopeful, and another 27% indicated that they were moderately hopeful. But you can see there, over a third or nearly a third of our students identified themselves as having very little or no hope at all. And you can see the trend there on the left. And who wouldn't have thought this would be the case, right, over the last 2 years? You can see that in the, I don't know if you can see my mouse, you can see here in the, between 2018 and 2021, levels of high hope have diminished. Levels of moderate hope have diminished, whereas levels of low hope have increased. What does that translate to? Then this is the really cool thing that we can do with the Healthy Youth Survey. It's a very comprehensive study. We're able to identify and cross-tab the other results. So what we found is that students that have high levels of hope find their education interesting and engaging. Students that have higher level of hope realize the relevance of their education. Students that have higher levels of hope are willing to go out and ask for help when they need it. And they tend to be getting better grades. Whereas students with lower levels of hope tend to be absent from school more, tend not to eat healthily or have a breakfast in the morning. They don't necessarily feel safe in school. Their substance abuse is higher. They have felt sad or hopeless. And this is the kicker. And if there is any reason why we should be focusing on hope, that last one is it. Their suicidal ideations are much higher. So it turns out hope is the answer. Hope is one of the best contributors to our ability to flourish. It's the best predictor of future outcomes later in life, whether it be education or their physical health or their mental health or their employment pathway or their engagement in the criminal justice system. We know that people who have higher levels of hope have brighter positive outcomes later in life. So what is it again? Hope is that belief that your future will be better than today, and you have the power to make it so. And it's simple. Hope is having a vision of a powerful, positive future, making a set of goals, developing a plan to get there, and believing that you're worth the effort. And here's the kicker, guys. This is the thing, if there's anything that you take away from this, it's this. It's a set of skills. We can teach this. We can teach students to set goals. We can teach students. Yeah, Judy, thank you. You're right. Simple, but not easy. We can teach students to set goals. We can teach students to find a pathway towards achieving them. We can teach students to build their motivation and agency around achieving that. These are skills that we can teach students. So let's break down some of those skill sets. First of all, let's talk about setting a goal. Well, the first thing that we need to do when setting a goal is to envision that positive future and have a time to vision what the possibilities and what our desires are. Visioning helps us to keep motivated, and it's a powerful thing to create emotional memories of future experiences. This is something I had a group of 8th graders a couple of months ago I was sharing this with, and we were talking a little bit of neuroscience, and we talked about how we generate memories, and we use the amygdala, and we use different regions of our brain, the hippocampus, and we create both when we think of something in the past, when we conjure up a memory, we realize that we have a visual memory, we have a emotional memory, we have a sensational memory. We have those memories of that past event connected to our brain. Then we go through a visioning exercise and we ask them to vision that positive future, something that's really cool that you want to have happen to your life. Make a picture of it in your head. What does it feel like? What emotions do you have right now when you feel that you've succeeded in that? And then we tell them, you just created a memory of the future. You're literally using the exact same regions of your brain that you conjured up that memory of the past to create a memory of the future. And for 8th graders, they just go, their head explodes for a second. They realize, wow, that's really cool. But we see it all the time. Think about athletes. The Winter Olympics. They do that right away. You see them at the top of the ski hill, and what are they doing? They're kind of measuring out each turn. They're thinking about it. They're visualizing that success and creating both the mental, the physical, the emotional, the sensational memory of completing that course before they do it. But we recognize also that creating that positive vision can get in the way. So real quick, what are some things that you can think of that would influence a student's ability to envision a positive future? Go ahead. Anyway, Phil, we got enough people in here. Go ahead and pop in or just throw it into the chat. Helplessness.
Environment.
Basic needs not being met.
Representation.
Mm-hmm. Poverty, lack of confidence.
Connections
or lack thereof, or who they're connected to. Stigma. Hey, and I will also tell you cultural history as well. Thank you, Sherry. Cultural barriers, right? For our BIPOC communities, we have to recognize that they have an inherent barrier in their life and in their community and in society for them to enable them to have a positive vision of the future. We have to recognize that. So here's another thing that gets to it as well, their regulative state. And this is why we also spend a lot of time teaching students about mindfulness and meditation and being able to regulate their body in different ways. Because if we're asking someone to envision the future and you are in a calm, chill state, your ability your cognitive abilities are heightened, and you're able to abstract ideas and pull different things from different areas to create that positive future. And temporarily, you're able to extend that future beyond the present quite far. But as our regulative state diminishes, as we become more alert or alarmed or fearful, or if the proverbial saber-toothed tiger is right there on our shoulder ready to eat us, we're not thinking about our process. We're not thinking, oh, there's a rock over there, I could grab that. Oh, but wait a minute, I could climb into that tree. Our actions are reflective, and our cognition temporally is in this moment. So when you think of students that have high levels of ACEs, that they are hyper vigilant about the world around them, it's really difficult for them to think about that future and how they extend that. So this is Really important that we help students develop these regulative skills. And I'm looking at the clock. We're done at 12:30. I want to make sure we have the time for chat. Is that right, James?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, I always go long in this presentation because there's always good stuff. I want to keep going. All right, so thinking about goal setting. So we have that vision, then we can start setting that goal. Those goals can be short-term, they can be long-term in nature, but they have to be sufficient to motivate that person, to give them that agency towards success. So when you're asking students or your young people to think about goals in the future, ask them to describe it in detail. Talk about why, how much you desire this, and why do you desire this? And what does it feel like, right? Get them to envision a little bit. Get them to think about what it feels like mentally, physically, emotionally to have achieved that goal, to help them develop that motivation. So we think about hope theory, we set that goal, we envision a positive future, we set a goal. Now let's talk about Waypower. And it's important that we, and this is another distinction from what we were talking about earlier, a goal without some kind of a plan literally is just a wish. So we have to be able to spend some time planning out what that goal looks like. So take time to plan those mental roadmaps. What are the steps that go along the way? And most importantly, help students develop the skills of identifying multiple pathways that they could get to achieving their goal, which enables them to avoid or work around potential barriers that come along the way. This is a real important skill set. I've seen students before that we develop a plan, they get on their path towards achieving a goal, and then something gets into the way of the goal and they say, oh, well, I guess that goal's not for me. And they step back. The most important skill that we can teach them is that resilience of recognizing, hey, wait a minute, my goal's still there. It's just the path that I take to get there may need to change and be different. Because we know this, we think about, and students do this all the time. Oh, I see the goal. And oh yeah, I got to pedal the bike a little bit and it's going uphill a little bit, but yeah, it's okay. I can make it. When in reality, it looks something like this, right? There's tornadoes and snakes in the pit and sharks. I don't know why there's a cruise ship being eaten by the shark, but it's a barrier, right? So we always recognize that there's always something that gets in the way. No plan goes according to plan. So help your students develop that pathway thinking by helping them identify that goal and then break it up into sub-steps or sub-goals. Help them stay focused, not that you have the bigger goal, but our path towards achieving that is this goal. Hey, look, you want to graduate from high school, but this geometry assignment is a part of the pathway towards getting there, right? Identify different routes towards achieving that goal. This is probably one of the most important and most challenging skills for students to learn. How to come to stay focused on the goal, but realize that there may be a different pathway towards achieving that goal than they thought originally. And help them learn to focus those skills that help them achieve the goal. That's what I said earlier. High hope people are continually developing that skill set of setting and achieving goals. And then this is where you come in. Build the relationship with people that help them support towards that goal. The most important thing that you guys can offer, this because this is what you do, is access to a relationship with a caring, compassionate, competent, and consistent adult. And help them recognize that if you don't achieve the goal, the problem is not with the goal or you, it may be the strategy that you're taking to get there. All right. Last couple of things on pathways. So when you think about setting those goals, help students break the things into a chain of events that move along towards achieving that goal. Help them identify a long pathway into smaller steps. Teach them to consider failure to be the results of ineffective strategies rather than a lack of ability or talent. And talk with them about their plans for reaching those goals. And one other thing I'll add in here, Allow them to take ownership of that goal. When we talk about career paths, I talked to a couple of 8th, 10th graders, and I can't tell you how many of them their career path is being a YouTube influencer. Okay, that's awesome. All right, let's think about what the steps are towards that. Allow them to make those goals. Allow them to have that pathway. Don't do it for them. Help them build their self-agency towards that path. And if they realize that maybe that goal was not the best thing for them, that's a far more powerful learning experience than you telling them being a YouTube influencer is a dead end. So don't minimize the child's concern about something or he or she has not learned. Instead, help them learn to address the problems. Don't do this work for them. Guide them. Be by their side, but let them lead. And really agree with the child if she concludes that there's no viable. Don't agree with them if there's no way to achieve the goal. Somebody thought, yeah, professional gamer. All right, yeah, let's go for it. Right on. All right, last bit is agency thinking, willpower. It's that mental energy to maintain your pursuits. It's the ability to regulate your thoughts and your emotions and stay focused on that goal. Goal attainment's not easy. It's hard work, and it's easy to lose focus if you're distracted from it. You have to maintain that motivation and effort towards achieving the goal. What motivates people? Well, research tells us that the carrot and stick method can work, right? If I do something, I get rewarded for it. If I do more of it, I get more from it. And if I do something I'm not supposed to, I get punished for it. And that works if it is a low level, take the chocolate and put it in the dipping sauce and move it down the line. The more of those you do, the better you get paid. As soon as the task requires cognition, ingenuity, collaboration, a carrot and stick method of motivation doesn't work. As a matter of fact, you start to get lower performance. A great book, I don't have this in the slide, a great book by Daniel Pink called Drive gets into this. So, and we do this in school all the time, right? We use grades as a motivator, and guess what? They don't motivate, very few kids are motivated by the letter grade. What motivates people are these three things. Having autonomy, being able to help set your own path, and being able to master the work along the way. Yeah, great. Thank you, Victor. That's a great little video. And then having purpose in your work. These are the things that motivate people, right? So when we think about students, we often talk about what's called universal design for learning. It allows a student to access the content in a variety of different ways and to demonstrate their learning of that content in many different ways. That provides them with autonomy, the ability to master the subject and focus on something that's passionate or purposeful to them, right? So think about when you are working with students and helping them set a goal, how are you addressing these three? How are you helping them build autonomy? How are you helping them develop mastery? And how are they helping them identify a purpose to their work? So real quick, we'll get to those last ones. Recognize that your goal is yours to achieve. Anticipate the roadblocks because they're going to come. Welcome them because it gives you a chance to make your plan that much better. Because if a roadblock comes that you didn't expect, that means you can improve your plan. Remember, goals are that you already achieved. That's why the importance of this cyclical nature of setting and achieving goals is really important skill to develop. And just, those basics, sleep, nutrition, healthy exercise, healthy foods. These are the things that give us the energy to be able to stay focused and motivated on it and enjoy that process along the way. Once again, as you are thinking about and are talking to your students, I ask you to think about this path. Help them identify those goals and help them to build the agency and that positive vision of themselves and their ability to achieve it. Help them develop the skills of identifying what a pathway could be towards achieving that goal. Help them create those future memories and reflect upon what they've done in the past and build their agency and their self-efficacy and their self-worth each and every time. It's a cyclical nature. It's a set of skills. And if you're doing a set of skills, you have to practice it. And so we ask students to practice that set of skills every day. So don't forget, it's this simple. It's setting goals. It's making a plan, and it's building your self-worth through it. It's a set of skills that we can teach. At the heart of change is our ability to understand the way things are and to imagine the way our lives can be. And this is the skill set that we want to teach students. As I said, I tried to pack, we could go on. I've got about another 2 hours of slides we can go into, but I'll stop it there. And I was just saying, it's just so interesting, James, that you just brought up the idea of hope, because I just had that PowerPoint sitting there, so we could talk about that.
Oh, that's amazing. I don't know how that happened.
I don't either.
Thanks, Jeff. That was great. I know there's at least one question from Robin in the chat, but we do have time for a couple of questions.
Yeah, Rob, and feel free to just pop your mic open. We don't have to talk through the chat here either. Just raise your hand and pop in.
Yeah, the other two ACEs that were added. In fact, I just was searching after I asked that, and I was like, I couldn't even find where they talked about those two added, or was it 2 or 4? Now I'm not even sure, but definitely they address race and culture.
Yes, and that's an area within Hope Science that is starting to get peeled back, and recognizing that it is a really good story about Nichelle Nichols. Now, Nichelle Nichols is she was Lieutenant Uhura on Star Trek, and if you know anything about her, she was a classically trained Broadway actress, and then she got asked to play this part on this goofy, sci-fi TV show. And after a year, she was going to go, you know what, it's time for me to get back to where my roots are and get back to Broadway. Here's what happened. Martin Luther King approached her and said, do you realize how important you are right now? You're a Black woman as a regular cast member of a major television series, playing the role of playing a leadership role. In fact, for those of you that are Trekkies don't realize this, Lieutenant Uhura was number 4 in line of command of the Starship Enterprise. I mean, she was a very powerful in charge. And so Martin Luther King approached her and said, you don't realize little girls are looking at you and seeing someone that looks like me in a position of power on TV. And she stuck around with the job. Well, one of those little girls happened to be Whoopi Goldberg, and as the story goes, and you know that Whoopi Goldberg later on was in Star Trek as well. So I share that as a recognition that, there are barriers. We call them adverse childhood experiences, or they're cultural, social barriers that particularly young people within the BIPOC community inherently have, that we have to recognize, it's not just envisioning a positive future, right? There's a lot more to it. We have to be able to recognize that and work with that.
See, Tom has his hand up, and Susanna has a question in the chat. Yeah.
So, hey, Jeff, what's happening? Hey, thanks for
Tom.
joining us today. I just want to acknowledge that you'll see on the screen today, in addition to all the great mentoring programs, you'll see a couple state agencies here. You'll have one, DCYF, who's the Director of Adolescent Programs. We're trying to incorporate this in our cultural back at the office and stuff. So we will be looking you up for those extra hours down the road. And I know that we've got folks like from JR on this as well, Desiree, and then we have Evergreen's State College with Ellen Short Sanchez. So as agencies, we talked about the kid stuff, and that's the most important piece, is the kid stuff. But what is your advice for, if we're trying to get something like this going for adults? And how do adults do this, or is it the same thing? What are you doing, and what's your experience in that space?
It's not too different. And if you tie it to the working with students, really, if you're in a school setting or an institutional setting, then the conversation becomes, how do we become a hope-centered agency? How do we focus the work that we do, attending to at all times, helping students envision that positive future, or helping them build the skills of developing plan and a pathway towards it, or building agency around their work. And often when we work, as a matter of fact, later on this afternoon, I've got a cohort of schools that we're working with that Chan Hellman's going to be joining as well, that they're doing that work right now. They're trying to figure out how they can be a kind of a hope-centered school. And often it starts with the teachers and the staff recognizing, wait a minute, this works for me too. I mentioned at the beginning of this is not just a professional journey for me. This is also a personal journey for me. I'm on that chart of ACEs. I have my own story. And I personally was gravitated to this work because I find efficacy in it for myself. And most people, most adults that I share this with, kind of start thinking about their own goals and their own pathways and their own agency before they start thinking about use. I see, so Susanna, I'm gonna read your question real quick here. So there are 2 big barriers for hope on Lopez Island. By the way, I love Lopez Island. So I do that when I drive on Lopez Island. We do not have a WISE program and we don't have a work source. So neither service is located on the island. It's very common for us to be lumped in the mainland with Woodby and San Juan. All of us require a full day off the island plus adult company when unrealistic travel fees. Yeah. We need more on-island outreach and program delivery from state providers. How can we help facilitate those resources there? I would reach out to the Lopez Island School District and start there. As a matter of fact, we are in Tom and James, I'll send this to you, but we are now recruiting a second cohort. I mentioned that we're doing a cohort of schools, and actually we have schools and one agency. We're also working with the Kitsap Juvenile Court. That's another realm. How do you create hope-centered courts, right? So all the therapeutic courts are beginning to think about their alignment towards hope science. But I will send this flyer to Tom and James about this next cohort that we're recruiting. It's going to be mostly for schools. So Kathy, maybe you could share that with Lopez Island, or Susanna, you can share that with Lopez Island, and maybe they can join our cohort. You know, Robin, not a bad idea. And and Tom and James, we can talk some more. I think there's the work of a mentor or the work of a case manager is hope. I mean, how can you deny that this is the work that you're doing? So yeah, I think there's easily we could come up with a way to help build a cohort for agencies like and MentorWorks and so forth. So yeah.
Yeah, this is Susanna. Thank you. I actually work in the school 3 days a week.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, so I think it's just a matter of having resources allocated to either the school or a community position, because if we have to rely on when someone can make it here without ferry reservations as an option, then it becomes an insurmountable challenge. But I'll definitely connect because their principals sit on our board as well.
Right. Well, and by the way, the Zoom toothpaste is out of the tube and we can't put it on. I think for schools like Lopez Island, being able to do all the cohorts that we're working with right now, we're doing it virtually. And there's some dollars that are provided to the school district. So, so James, if you could send me Susanna, well, just make sure Susanna gets that flyer. But I think that would be a good one.
Yeah, and there was a question, will you be able to share those slides you presented?
Sure. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, and Vic, thanks for putting that into the chat. If you could fill out this short survey, based on this workshop and your feedback. That'd be really helpful for us, for Jeff, for the whole network at large.
Do we just put Java with James or do we put Hope with Jeff? What do we put?
Java with Jeff and James. How's
There
that?
you go. That rolls off the tongue. That rolls off the tongue.
There you go.
Hey, and Suzanne, I just wanted to, do you know what I'm talking about when you're driving on Lopez Island? What that is?
Wave.
Yeah, that's the wave. So if you ever drive, actually the wrong hand. If you're ever driving on Lopez Island, people on the island, when they drive by, they just do this. You know? Yeah.
It's called the
it.
Shaka Lopez.
Well, thanks so much, Jeff, for joining
You
us.
bet. This is fun.
Fantastic, man. Really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for attending, participating, and the questions you asked. This is recorded. We'll put this on our website, and we will send out the flyer that Jeff mentioned and the PowerPoint as well. Excellent. Thanks, everyone.
Right on. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, James. This has been great. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.